So, throughout this show, we want to look at ways to achieve success in the RPG industry, right? I mean, that's kind of the name of the show and what it's all about. But in order that we can take the steps we're going to take in future episodes to know how to achieve success, we kind of have to know what success is, right? So, what is it? Like, let me give you some examples, right? I publish on Drive Through RPG and I've got a PDF product up there. Someone buys it. Good. Did I achieve success? Or how about I collaborate on a book or a board game that wins an industry award? That's cool recognition. Is that success? How about I get a freelance job or even a full time job at Pelgrane Press or Monty Cook Games? Is that success? Is it success if I write for Wizards of the Coast? Is that more or less success or the same? What about if I speak at a convention? Here's another one. I attain a certain number of followers on a social media platform. Is that success? I'm going to argue it's not really. All right, now imagine that I hit $1 million crowdfunding project. I think probably all of us would go, yeah, okay, that's got to be success. But if it is, does that mean I'm kind of done? Like, did I achieve success and I can just sit back? Is there nothing left? Is success ever truly achieved? So, what is success? So, this first episode is going to lay the groundwork for other episodes by helping us think through our definition of success. And we particularly want to build a definition where success is going to be healthy and sustainable. I'm Teos Abadia, and this is the show Success in RPGs. All right, so first, why are we bothering to define this? Why should we even think about the concept of success, and why not just get to doing stuff and making stuff and run headlong into the future? Yeah, you can totally do that. That works really well for some people, surprisingly well at times, but for certain people, because you see, you're going to get more out of the things you do if your success is valued properly. I see a lot of people in the industry undervalue their successes or even fail to acknowledge or benefit from it. So let me give you a quick example. I was at a convention once and I ran into someone that I knew, and they had been just knocking things out of the park, success after success after success. But they looked kind of hectic, like they were out of breath and they were looking this way and the other way. And they said hi to me, but like, just hurriedly, because they were just clearly, their mind was elsewhere and convoluted. You could just see them trying to work through problems. And so I said, hey, you okay? And they said, yeah, I just got so much going on. I was just at a seminar and now I got to go meet some people to do this thing. And I don't know if I'm supposed to meet somebody here or there. So I said, hey, okay. If I can help, let me know. But, you're kind of really doing really well these days. Like what you're doing, it's super awesome and it's inspiring to a lot of people. I don't know if you're not enjoying that. Like, I hope you are, because you should be. A lot of people would like to be in your shoes. And honestly, they were too worked up to process that. And I watched them walk away. And that was the last time I saw them at a convention. And they kind of exited the hobby after that. So I think that cautionary tale, the point is, we want to assess how we're achieving success, how to benefit from it, and so that it's sustainable, right? Planning can help us do that. Okay, so at the broadest level, let's define success. And I'm going to suggest that we use these 4 ways to frame what success is at this broad level. So first, positive. It's something positive that makes us proud to have done this thing. It is something that it's not inconsequential, right? It took some effort. We feel like we did something cool. Second is, this is going to be a thing that we define. So we view success from our own personal perspective. We look to our own selves to define it. And that's because if, I were to say, hey, what do you think my success would be? That's not going to match up with what I'm doing, right? I need to have my own goals. So, and this also is because something might be taken for granted by someone else that's special to us. Like, let's say I just start learning how to use Photoshop, right? that might be a big deal for me. But for somebody else, it might be really easy to just pop into Photoshop because you've already used some tools that are kind of like it, and you just look up some tutorials on the web and you feel really comfortable doing that. And learning to use Photoshop at an introductory level might not feel like success to one person. But to me, it might be actually a really cool achievement. So again, we want to define it our own selves. Third is to look at a varying time frame and acknowledge that success is both near term, a thing we're doing, this month and the next couple of months, and often the distance. It could be years later, right? And it's okay to call both of those success. I might know that one day I'm going to launch a crowdfunding campaign, but I'm not taking immediate steps towards that now. That is in the distance, and I'm doing other things that will help me get there. But, separately, I'm focusing on near-term activities. So a good example, this show. I had the goal to launch this show where I talked about the industry and help people get started and learn skills and pass on things that others have passed to me. And the first thing I did was back in April of 2020, so a little over 2 years ago, I started streaming me playing a video game, the Neverwinter MMO. I still do that, but I did it as a way to sort of learn the tools of OBS and streaming and Twitch and YouTube and all that kind of, piece. But I knew in the distance was the idea that I wanted to have this show, right? So that is a success. Well, I hope so. I hope you agree. All right, last one is evolving. What success is for us today is going to evolve tomorrow. And we're going to acknowledge that as we come up with what success is. Our capabilities are going to change. Our perspectives are going to change. The things that interest us, that we like, all of that's going to change, right? So we're going to periodically reassess what success is. If you happen to work in kind of project management business areas, you might have heard the acronym SMART used for establishing goals and objectives. I may go back into that at a later time because it can be useful. And particularly, I want to talk about S, which the S in SMART stands in this acronym for specific. And it's worth mentioning that I think for what we're doing today, for defining your success, you don't have to always be specific. It's helpful to be specific when you're dealing with near-term things, because that's something that you're going to really be, actively working on when we measure our progress later. But when we're thinking of something long term, it can be, I want some sort of a show that I stream or that I record that helps others. And it can just be vague. It does not have to be specific. All right, so we have talked about these 4 key concepts. Let's now talk about some specific ways that we can help define our personal success. And I'm going to start with this list here, which begins with financial success. And that's not to say that I want to fully embrace a capitalist world, but when we want to achieve success, it's important to think about the financial angle of things. It doesn't have to be our top priority, but what do we want to do with our income? Because to do these things, we're generally going to spend, at the very least, our time, and our time has a value. We're going to also spend money, right? We might need a webcam, or we sign up for a blog, or I've got to pay a podcasting host. When we do all these things, we probably want to cover those, or at least know how far off we are if we're losing money on those ventures, right? So establishing financial success and helping to define that is important. We often want to learn new skills. This is a great way to find success. I want to learn how to use OBS so I can live stream my games, right? That's a great kind of success, a new skill. Just as important is honing existing skills. Like, I know that when I write adventures, I am advancing my capabilities around that. And some of it I can just do by writing. I get better each time. But also, I can take specific steps to expose myself to more adventures, to go see how other people create adventures, to see how my adventures are run so I understand what they do well and do poorly. So there are a lot of ways that I can hone my existing skill. Another aspect that we can look at is to advance the hobby. And This is a pretty broad category. It encompasses a lot of different endeavors that you can look at as to how to find success. But it's a really good idea to want to change something, to make things better in some way. Like maybe you want to make your favorite RPG better, or just make it be acknowledged by more people, enjoyed by more people. Maybe you want to create inspiring works. Like you're hoping that you will create the kinds of things that have made you happy over the years, but maybe taking them in a new direction. Like, for example, you want to encourage collaborative storytelling, and everything you do, or not everything, but a lot of things you do, will be towards achieving that success. Maybe you want to revolutionize the print options available for small publishers. I tell you, I would love for someone to do that. It's a real need. So that could be a cool business that advances the hobby. Suddenly, anybody can easily print things cheaply or affordably at a at a decent price. That would be great. And maybe you want to do something like create a safe community for a group of which you're a member, or create pay transparency across the industry. There are a lot of different things you can do. And you might think, well, come on, how can I really like change the hobby and change things up? But it's true. You can. In fact, I'm going to share with you something that happened to me a while back. And that is that I was sharing the story on Twitter of how I came to influence D&D 5th edition around the Flumph. And I'll post this in case it amuses you. In case you haven't heard this story, I'll post a link to this in the notes. But what I shared here is this story of how I thought the Flumph was kind of silly, and I started to champion it. I did that way back in 3rd edition a little bit, but mostly in 4th edition. And I just kind of shared all the things I knew about it, and I thought this guy's kind of fun. And I did that enough during the 4th edition days that it caught the attention of Wizards of the Coast staff and of lots of community members. And so the Flumph became sort of this thing people were talking about, these funny monsters, to the point where I was at Gen Con and Jeremy Crawford comes up to me, the head rules designer, and says, "All right, explain to me, what's the deal with the Flumph?" And I mean, he was probably going through what should be in the Monster Manual, right? And it felt like an audition, like right here. And lo and behold, the end of the story is that it's not even the end, it's maybe the first step of the story, is that it ends up in the Monster Manual for 5th edition, right? Whereas it had been ignored in a whole bunch of editions. I didn't do that alone, right? But, even some designers have said, hey, you probably really helped this along. And I like this comment here because I said sort of, find your Flumph, because I like that the Flumph is in 5th edition, but I'm much more proud of being a person who speaks up for better pay. I try to talk about inclusivity. Things like that to me are super, super important, right? Those are the things that motivate me. But still, find your own Flumph. You can actually impact the hobbies around you, or nudge them, in tiny but noticeable ways. Hopefully with more significance than the Flumph. So another way to define success can be that you want to acquire a particular job or position. Like maybe you dream of having a full-time career in self-publishing, doing things yourself, or you want to work for MCDM as a freelancer, or hey, I want to be a freelancer for Critical Role, right? Like those kinds of things are cool. Maybe you want to do something like reduce your day job from whatever percentage it is now, probably 100%, to some smaller percent, and retire early and from that job and switch to your hobby. I mean, that sounds so dreamy. Oh, yeah, sorry. Next category. So maybe you want to get your name in print, right? Credits. That can be an awesome goal. Like, I just want to see my name appear somewhere. I want to create a thing, and maybe it's not about my name, but it's just about the thing. Like, I've got this idea for some really neat aberrations, and I just want to create them and have them out there in the world, right? And maybe it's something more specific, like I want to be credited for having worked on the following thing. I dream of doing this kind of a product, right? Those are all excellent goals. To create something or get credit, sort of printed credit for something is awesome. Another one is to have appearances or industry recognition. Like I want to play on a live stream with cool people. I want to be on a convention panel with industry greats. I want to be on my favorite podcasts. I listen to these folks all the time. Wouldn't it be so cool if I could be on it? I have been in those in that place. I'm still in that place in a lot of ways. And peer recognition is great too. Like, it's totally fine, right? Ego is okay when we're being healthy about it. Like, it's our success. It's natural to want acclaim. So, going to a gaming store and having someone say like, "Hey, are you the person who wrote this thing?" Or, "Do you have a blog? I really like that, reading it." Like, that's great, right? It's totally fine to say, "I want to write a blog and I want people to sometimes say that they like it." Like, that's great. Another category is collaboration. Collaborating with people we admire is super cool, right? People you can learn from. But just as neat is the idea that we could collaborate with people who are rising in the industry and don't have the expertise we have, right? Collaborating with those people and help them rise up is super neat. And there have been some great examples of that in our industry. So that's a super cool success to target. Mentorship, the idea of having a mentor initially, but even later on, or being a mentor to someone as we have expertise that we can pay forward, right? That's great. All right, so all of these categories, I have made a worksheet that you can use to help you with your process here. So you can get this worksheet in a Google Doc that will be, the notes will be in the description down below. The link will be there. So you can click on it and follow along if you'd like, or you can do this later. It's totally cool either way. And what the worksheet is doing is it is working through a combination of the timetable and the types, the categories of different types of success. So we've got our 4 core concepts again here. We've got our success categories, and then we have these 3 tables. And you could put more there, but I wanted to sort of start at a high level here that would be sort of easy to begin with. And I've pre-filled it out with some ideas like to help us get started. So, but let me first just mention here, the categories are in green. And these are the same ones we talked about: financial success, learning a new skill, honing a skill, being a mentor or mentee, right? And on the left in yellow are the time frames that you have around these particular successes. So here's an example. Financial success. My near term could be, I'd like to have a product for sale. My very first product. That's what I want when I'm starting out. An intermediate might be, what if I could have 2 to 3 products out there and they got, 1 or more of them had 100+ sales, that I would reach 100 people with a product? Super awesome, right? Mwah, let's do that. Great goals. Learning a new skill, I gave you some examples of those. And so we could fill out here the kind of thing like, I just want to stream a video game to get warmed up. And someday it would be really amazing if I could have a show called Success in RPGs. These things can happen with a little luck. We'll talk about luck on a future show. All right. So then, here's some other examples, like a job position type thing. I could say near term, I'd like to land my first freelance assignment. Intermediate could be something like, I want to freelance for company X, right? They're really awesome. I love their reputation. I love their products. I want to land that. And then long term could be, I want to publish myself and maybe even like, have pallets of books that are being distributed around the country and even overseas and all kinds of people getting my products. That would be really neat too. I want to hire people full time. That would be a really cool goal. So all of these you can go through and fill out, and depending on where you are in the industry today or in your hobby, it might look like this or it might look very different, right? You might already have a high volume of sales, but you're looking to expand into things. I want to expand into new markets. I've been doing this kind of product. Now financially, I want to be able to, hire somebody, or I want to be able to, like, here's a way you could look at it, right? Like maybe you want to cover rent as an intermediate goal, but a long-term goal is you want to be able to afford not just your rent, but you want to be able to afford emergencies. You want to be able to handle healthcare. You want to be able to handle a kid going to college, right? So those are totally different scale that you're applying when you're a different kind of publisher or creator. So I hope that this worksheet will be helpful to you. You can, go in and make a copy, right, is what you'll need to do, because you won't have access in the version that you see. This is a copy right here. But in the version that I will provide the link to down below, you will not be able to edit it. You will need to make a copy of it, and then you can enter your data into that one. And I think it's totally cool if you take this and do like your version now, and then save that, or I mean, printing is sort of, turn it into a PDF. However, save it as a PDF so you can look at it and remember that point in time. And if you do this, say every 6 months or so, you will have a really cool snapshot of your industry kind of outlook, your hobby outlook as a creator, and how your goals change over time. And it would be really cool. I don't know that it's gonna be a coffee table book, but it would be, you'll at least spend a Sunday super enjoying going over that. The other thing I would say is you can totally have multiple in these cells. So my near-term financial success might be get my first product out there, and it might also be that I want to have a certain number of sales, right? And that maybe I'm going to take that money and I'm going to buy a webcam with it. Intermediate goals, you might be like, I want to, kind of generate this much revenue and do the following things with it. So you can add a number of items to each of these, as many as you want. And another thing that I would suggest, which is at the end of this document, it'll be on the same page in the version you see. Once you have filled out this table, look at all of the near-term items and copy them down, below in that little ranking section, and think through which of these near-term items are the most important, right? What is the most critical success to me? So maybe, freelancing for somebody versus making my first product. What's more important? And sort of what do I want to achieve first? And there can be a lot of reasons. Like maybe I think, well, it'll be easier to freelance and I'll learn more, and then I'll go and I'll make a product myself. So that's how I'm going to rank them. But that's what I would suggest. You can do that for intermediate as well. Longer term, it's not as critical to do that, but especially for near term, it's really good to rank the order of those within a time frame. So I hope this has been really useful for you to see these different ideas. If you have not, while watching this, filled it out, I encourage you to do so. This is the kind of thing that may not seem super helpful at first, but I think once you go through it, you will gain something from this process by doing it. And then in upcoming episodes, we're going to look at how we achieve the successes that you've identified in this worksheet, or that you otherwise have identified or have in mind. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time on Success in RPGs.